Did you do a tour with him afterwards?
Mm-hmm.
How was that?
I did. It was terrible. No, it was a literal dream come true. It was insane. So we did a tour of South America. This was fall of 2018. 2018. And so we did Colombia, Chile, Brazil, Uruguay, and Argentina.
Mm-hmm. And what was the band?
It was Herbie, myself, Gregoire Marais on harmonica, insane harmonica player.
Wow.
James Genus on bass, and Justin Brown on drums. And I was like just stunned. Like, firstly, that I was even there. When I got the email, I was like, this is spam. Like, this this like is spam. Like, this is what spam is, you know?
Yeah.
And finally I was like, actually, no, this is real. And once I realized it was happening, I was like, okay, so I need to practice. I need to learn every song he's ever made. And then I went to the catalog. I'm like, that's impossible.
Sure.
So I'm just going to wait until we find out what the music is, and then I'm going to start shedding. We didn't find out what the music was until like a couple days before the first rehearsal. And it was like nothing I've ever experienced before. So like Herbie's working process, or I should say Herbie's rehearsal process, was very organic. He was like, I don't really know what I want to play. Here are some sketches. Is there anything of mine that you guys want to play? And I was just like, I don't know, Butterfly. I don't know, everything. And we ended up doing a bunch of different stuff, and it changed from night to night. But I realized it took me like 2 good gigs. It took me 2 gigs to start feeling comfortable. Like I could actually sit into the experience.
Sure.
Because for those first 2 gigs, I was so worried about letting Herbie down. I was so worried about doing the wrong thing, or like doing something that was like adventurous in the wrong way, or like the word wrong was very strong in my internal narrative for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally I realized, I think I asked Herbie, I was like, so at this one part of this particular song, do you want me to whatever? Do you want me to do this particular thing? He's like, I don't know, man, just do you. And I was like, oh shit. Sorry, can I curse?
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit. He just wants me to do me, because if he didn't, like, he would have called someone else.
Sure.
So like then I was like, okay, cool. I can just like chill and not chill obviously, but I can like, relax into the experience and just do what comes naturally.
Yeah. That's amazing. It's amazing he can set that up in such a way that you feel that way. Because I can imagine. I mean, two gigs. I wouldn't be surprised if I was peeing my pants for the whole amount of time I was down there. I mean, that's a
I mean, I definitely was, but it was like the pee became a bit more secure as time went on.
There you go. Yeah, that's a funny thing too. I wonder if it's specifically in improvising, but it's certainly in music in general that. On the one hand, you have to be a little nervous. And I think it's really important to be doing things that make you a little nervous, because it means that you're gonna push yourself and that you're gonna do better. You don't want to come in and say, whatever, Herbie Hancock, I'll wing it, it'll be fine,
Right.
But then on the other hand, if you're really trying to access that which makes you an individual as a musician, or try to convey your own perspective or whatever, you have to be relaxed to some degree. You have to be like, you can't be thinking about whether you're going to screw it up.
Right. I sometimes like to think of these things in terms of like body position, body orientation, like forward leaning versus backward leaning versus like standing in the middle.
Interesting.
And like I tend to want to have a bit of buoyancy, because my like, if left to my own devices, like in the absence of gigs or obligations or anything, is to be just to like sit down and chill. Like if there's a lazy boy, I will be it. And so I've had to learn how to sort of become a bit more forward-leaning. I associate forward-leaning with proactivity, with forward motion, but also with like anxiety, nervousness, frantic thoughts. And I associate backward-leaning with relaxedness, inner peace, but also like a fear of movement. If left to its own devices, and sometimes an unwillingness to change whatever's happening. So I tend to like to exist in this sort of more buoyant middle zone. And I feel like in improvisation, and exactly what you're talking about, it's all about finding that balance between like, okay, be proactive, but also be open to reacting to whatever else someone else might throw at you.
Sure. Now, do you think about that as actually standing, or like your presence on Earth, like in space, or I mean, that's an interesting. I've never heard anybody I think talk about. I've never even really thought about that. I've thought about body positions in some regard,
Sure.
but maybe could you elaborate on that? A
Sure,
little bit?
yeah. I think of it more like I don't literally think of it as like as I'm standing, I'm literally leaning back, but I think of it more in terms of like the feeling of it. I mean, I will say, like, specifically talking about the actual physicality of it, like, I tend to feel a bit more comfortable if I'm like leaning back than if I'm leaning forward. I I'm not like a biologist or anthropologist or anything like that. I would wager to say that there probably is some connection between that. But I guess I'm speaking more in terms of like, some people feel uncomfortable unless they have a million things on their plate. You know what I mean? Like they don't know how to relax.
Yeah.
I've never been that person. That
See,
is not
I'm a
who
little. That's a little closer to me, honestly.
Okay,
That's what
yeah.
I've been struggling with in these, quarantine times, trying to figure that out. But
Sure, yeah. I mean, like, I have a really good friend of mine who is the same way, and like when we talk, because we're kind of polar opposites in that way, I'm like, she always asks me, she's like, how do you relax? Like, how can you chill? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, how can you do 10,000 things and still keep going? Like, so I feel like it's a matter of like learning maybe what your like tendencies are and trying to shade in the rest if you can.
yeah, no doubt.
It's a journey.
Interesting. I'm going to think about that. I'm going to be thinking about that going forward. Man, I'm glad to hear that that Herbie's as hands-on, or is it like, let's say, flexible or artistic, or like let's everybody, because it would be easy for somebody in his status to say, all right, MD, you rehearse the band, I'm going to show up on the gig, play the gig, and get out. You know what I mean? But
right. And
it's really cool that
he was at every single sound check, and he like spent so much time like making sure that the keyboard sounded right, that all the sound stuff were, and he has like an amazing team of people, and people I consider friends now that were there at every gig, like traveling with the band, and yeah, very very hands on, very present. He's extremely present,